no confidence in myself, but I believe in your interviewing skills will make this wonderful somehow.
Well, then I have all the power in the world.
You're on.
I know. I knew that. But always that little pre-roll. As you know, it's a preamble sometimes. It's the warm, sweet spot that gets into the intimacy spot, right? Hey, it's Kristen Eykel. I'm here at SAND, Science and Non-Duality Conference 2017, up in the beautiful San Jose area. Fortunately, there's no fire. Thank goodness. And I had the pleasure, the blessing, and the honor to be in presence with Michaela and James this morning for their class, their workshop here. And I just wanted to ask them a little bit about who they are and why they are here. And the big issue on the table, actually, is intimacy, right? Into the other sea. And they were actually giving this experience of embodying what intimacy really truly feels like within the individual. Notice I'm doing his heart space. So that's what we're really working on, right? Yes. So, Goddess, I'd love to hear. Why are you teaching this beautiful practice to us all?
Why are we teaching? Well, it's needed. It's very needed. I would say that intimacy and relationship and sex is the one area that we're not taught ever. Really.
Why is that? Wouldn't you think we should learn that along with like economics and stuff?
Of course we should, but we don't. And most of us get our parents' relationship as the only measure of what can be done in relationship, which is not enough as a teaching, tool. And most of us never get taught about sex or sexual intimacy or any of those things. So it's the area where people are most deficient and lacking the most skills. And it's actually an area where a little bit of skill goes a long way.
I've actually heard it's not size that matters. So I'll give the little bit of skill that goes a long way, and I'll ask you about that. So what about your little bit of skill that goes a long way?
It's a very personal question.
That's why we're here. Thank you.
Well, one of the things we start with is the body, actually. And sometimes we say that feeling is the ground of intimacy. Feeling is the ground of intimacy. And you can't be intimate with something, whether it's a person or yourself or whatever, if you can't feel that or perceive that. And so we acquaint them with their instrument of perception.
So just a quick 1-minute thing that you would have people at home do if they were to say like, okay, great, I would love to get intimate with my own body so that I could be present with. Now, it doesn't have to even be somebody that you're having sex with, right? It can be somebody that you work with or somebody that you have a conflict with that you'd like to get a closer relationship to.
Yeah, it's with yourself, it's with another, it's with any human, any animal, and the planet, a tree. And that involves you feeling yourself, and it involves you feeling the other, whatever the other is. And that's long before sex. But of course it helps sex a great deal.
So if those at home would like to have a little moment of becoming present with that self-intimacy, what would be your gift in a nutshell that you would have them do? Mm-hmm. I know there's 20, but you could have one.
Yes, one nutshell, certainly. Well, if you're sitting there, you could perhaps close your eyes, and you're sitting there on the chair, whatever it may be, and there's two things happening. If you can feel the sensations that reveal the presence of your body, on the one hand, there's the raw sensory data coming in, revealing the presence of your body, and then on the other hand, the mind labels and separates all that stream of data and says, that's my bottom on the chair, that's my clothing on my skin. And if you can, even as the mind is labeling and categorizing all those things, if you can tune into the raw sensory data before the categorization or the labeling, then that's something towards the direction we're talking about. Because often in relationships, it's the case. We're relating to somebody, we don't see them anymore now. We're relating to our summary of them from previous experience, projections and so on. So we're relating to our partner in that sort of way. So when we're looking at intimacy, we're looking at, okay, let's see how they are appearing now. What do they look like now? Never mind face and eyes and knowing this person from before. Can we get in touch with the raw sensory data that reveals the presence of our partner or our body in this case, whatever it is?
Well, I love what you're saying about that, because we do have a tendency, and you were referring to this when you have that instant like knowing of attraction, which is going to obviously be something you learned in childhood with your parents or what have you, which is really disconcerting when you're looking at that being a sexual partner. But that sense of really being present to the feelings within your own experience and not categorizing it, not putting it a label as to this is how it was before, therefore this is how it must be in the future.
That's right.
That offers real hope for people who have traumatic experiences to be able to repattern a sense of sensuality and intimacy within self and feeling safe with another. If your molecules are new today, which they are, and your perception is new today, which it can be, hopefully, then you get to have this whole, oh my God, I'm having a total deja vu with you both. That's so, thank you. Means we're in presence right now. That you get to have that new experience with this other. And I think that's very, not just self-affirming, but also respectful
It's very
for this dynamic human that's in front of you.
That's right. To see the person there. Sometimes we forget it's a person that we're in relationship with, You forget.
So these teachers are teaching in Australia, in Europe. She's living in Ojai, actually, which is kind of heaven. But if you were to say what your give back is, like, this is an enormous amount of time, energy, passion, and effort that you've spent in this, years, decades of your life that you're putting into this. What is the end result? What is your give back to the world that you're hoping that the world will amplify and exchange as a result of your gift?
An ability to have a differentiation between skill and spiritual insight, or however you want to say that. So knowing what's what and not lumping together, a spiritual disposition and actual skill you can learn, which is very, very difficult for some people because in personal growth it's all lumped together. And pulling that apart and knowing that there's skills you can learn and it's not some magic thing. You can actually increase your ability to have good relationship. You can actually learn how to have good sex.
So human relationship is not something outside of ourselves that we then magically, luckily fall into if we happen to have the right lottery number, right?
Right.
You're saying we can cultivate that in real time in our lives.
That's right.
And we can recommit to that even in a long-term relationship.
Yes.
But then how do we apply that in our daily life going forward so that it actually means something instead of just a book we read or a workshop we went to?
That's right. Yeah, and that's why we offer intimacy as an uncovering of layers, actually keeping us apart from the experience of relationship with somebody else. There's a big layer of dogmas and concepts and so on. We try to take away the conceptual layers, empowering themselves to relate without us involved in a sense, so that they don't have the need for the dogmas and so on. Direct experience of each other.
So if you were to have an unformed child or human that has never come to this game before, it's all brand new, and you're giving them the handbook, the manual for living. Just living. No, really, but through the lens.
Finally, the opportunity we've both been waiting for.
This is
to
why
form a child exactly in our image.
Exactly, and to just like shape this, being. What would you say would be that deep foundation that intimacy would lie within the individual that can then be replicated in your community?
Of course, if you could teach somebody from scratch, you would teach them to have intellectual ability, emotional intelligence, and bodily intelligence, and then have those three work together as needed. That would be ideal.
That's what we're asking for. So that body, that mind, that spiritual intelligence, all cohesive. That's where you get the full body orgasm right there, because that's the sensory experience in the body, right? The emotional experience between me and thou-ish, and that sort of overwhelming energy that we get to then tap into, which is bigger than you and me put together. Right?
That's a good way of putting it.
And that's where magic happens.
Yes.
I want that class.
Well, you live
that's why I came to your class. I know, right? I want to get to go to your class too. I really want to thank both of you for your time, and I really want to thank both of you for your teaching and what you're offering to people, and truly the opportunity that is offered of when you're saying when you live in the body, you then have that opportunity to live with another. And so many people don't live in their bodies. They're so afraid of their bodies. They don't touch themselves. They don't let anybody touch them or come close to them. So when you have that ability to really be in your body, I think that in and of itself is a gift, regardless if there's an object for your intimacy to reflect on.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, teacher. Thank
you.
you so much. Thank you for
Oh,
participating.
it's a pleasure.
What's the name of your website?
Oops, michaelaboehm.com and guruviking.com.
Guru Viking?
Guru Viking, yes,
That's
he's
my
guruviking.com. I know.
Thank you so much for being
Thank
present.
you.
Thank you for participating and sharing. And thank you as well for watching, for sharing, and for connecting with all of these beautiful people. I'm Kristen Eykel, and we'll see you next time. E basta.
Nailed it.